Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today's International Affairs. My name is Shamsul Panto and I shall be the host of the program today. Of course, we are broadcasting live from Dhaka's Gulshan studio. Without further ado, let me introduce my panelists before I can begin today's hot topics around the globe and also inside our country. Alongside me, we have Mr. Ali Ahmed, who is, of course, a former bureaucrat as well as a former member customs of the National Board of Revenue and has joined us on this program before. And alongside, we have our SATV's geopolitical correspondent, Mr. Ambassador Norman Floyd Barnes, joining us from Washington, D.C. Gentlemen, welcome to the program. I want to begin with the top headline today. Donald Trump says a lot of progress has been made on ending the Russia-Ukraine war after meeting Volodymyr Zelensky in Florida. This was, of course, yesterday, and we understand how the United States is now looking towards talking with both of the sides to understand what are the grievances that both of the sides hold. I understand this war has been prolonging for almost 3.5 years. On the other side, we have the International Atomic Energy Agency, the IAEA, announcing the start of repairs on the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant amid a local ceasefire brokered by the UN nuclear watchdog. Alongside, the Arab League calls on UN Security Council to take firm stance against Israel's recognition of Somaliland, a nation that has broken away from Somalia in 1991 after vast number of differences between the two territories. But I want to begin with Norman Floyd Barnes. I know that this meeting in Florida holds huge significance in regards to the Ukrainian stance on the Russia-Ukraine war. I want to begin with you, Norman, on how you felt. How did the meeting go? What are your observations regarding this event?
Greetings. Greetings from Washington, D.C. Today, we start another week of the holiday period. President Trump is resting in, well, I call it resting, but he's in Florida, and he's entertaining both Ukraine and Israel. Yesterday, he met with Ukrainian president, and the meetings went very well. There was progress. There's discussions about peace. The word peace was brought up a lot. Ukraine stated that they want to end this war. They want to have some type of agreement so they can get back to a normal life. At the same time, he also mentioned that Putin and the Russian Federation also desires peace. But the issue right now is territory. How do they negotiate the Donbass region about who stays, who goes, what's happening, and also the issue about security. Who will provide the security, what type of security, and how it will be implemented, and to ensure that if this war ends, ceasefire, or it ends, will Russia decide to come back again? So these issues are being discussed. Right now, there's no guarantee that they're going to come to a negotiated period. And if they do not come to terms, there will be continued fighting. So as the president mentioned, there will be continued fighting and more people will die. So this is something we hopefully they'll come to a understanding and we can have a resolution before 2026. Hopefully, at least during 2026. There's a meeting also been proposed for the European Union to come to Washington and meet with the President Trump to discuss how this plan is going to be implemented and what their role is going to be. Today, we're looking to have the president's also in Florida have the meeting with the Prime Minister of Israel. And also they're going to discuss about terms of ceasefire and the next stages that they're going to be implementing with Israel. At the same time, as you mentioned, Israel has decided to announce Somaliland as a state, which causes real problems with the United Nations and also, most importantly, with the country of Somalia. They are basically stating that Israel is looking just to put another footprint, another base for they can continue their military actions in the region. And they are not very happy about this. And they want to basically call for a United Nations to basically to null and void this type of this declaration. So a lot of stuff is happening right now. Um, we're still looking at the situation in Nigeria, and now with Israel's proclamation of Somaliland, it's really tension is really rising in the area, and people are not very comfortable right now going into 2026. What's the outcome going to be? Thank you.
That was a brilliant observation on the world news. I must thank Ambassador Norman Floyd Barnes for giving an overview of the latest world breaking news. I must come back into the studio with Mr. Ali Ahmed. As you were hearing Norman Floyd Barnes talking about this meeting between Donald Trump and Volodymyr Zelensky, I'm sure that these two leaders also were in contact with European leaders, holding a phone call to discuss the concrete steps to end this Russia-Ukraine war, according to the Finnish President Alexander Stubb. My question to you, sir, I know that you are a professor of economics. You understand the trade market in a situation like Ukraine and Russia. Much of the eastern territory, even the Donbass area, the people over there are ethnically, if not culturally, more leaning towards Russian, or they try to claim that themselves as Russians. So this is a problem rooted in Ukrainian culture. I want to understand how you felt given the recent meeting of so many leaders.
You have raised 2-3 very important issues. I don't think it has been discussed much in this forum or elsewhere. What happened during the Soviet days, lot of Russians settled to Ukraine, especially in this Donbass and on this region. So their language and ethnically most of the people are Russians, not Ukrainians, though the country is Ukraine. After the secession or the collapse of the Soviet system, when Ukraine became an independent country, this side was Ukrainian territory with Russian people, Russian language and everything. And so before this breakout of this war, there continued to be small wars always. That is why the war is said to be very old. They wanted freedom and annexation by Russia, that is joining Russia, and the Ukraine said it is our territory. So that has been going on. We thought there would be some settlement, but later it came as a total aggression by the Russians. And the Russians also say something in their favor. I might sound a little partial to Russia, but I must explain what happened. When the German reunification question came in 1990, after the dissolution of the Soviet Empire or Soviet Union, as you might call, the Soviet leaders were very worried about what will happen to the rest of the countries. And then at that time, Helmut Kohl was the Chancellor of Germany, yes. James Baker was the Secretary of State, and John Major was the Prime Minister of Britain. They said separately many times, but there is no agreement in writing. They said, and even Helmut Kohl said not an inch eastward. That means the reunification Germany, the Soviet Germany came to Germany and became reunited as the old German country. They had to come from this, and the question came, the worries came in the Soviet bloc, and they said what will happen next. These Western leaders, including Helmut Kohl, James Baker, John Major, of these three countries, as I said, they said not an inch eastward. That means there would be no further advancement of the NATO countries. And then after that, few countries have joined: Poland, Czechoslovakia at that time, now it is Czech Republic and Slovak region, and many countries, quite a few, and later also many countries. So there has been a serious breach of that trust. And if you recall, at the beginning, President Putin used to say, the root cause, why are you fighting? Come to the root cause. This is the root cause. They said there will be no expansion, and there has been expansion. But still, at the earlier part of the war, Putin was not doing very well. There has been lot of loss of human beings and material. But if you remember, the Chinese foreign minister said not hardly a month before or so, or maybe 15 days, that we cannot see China being defeated.
Right.
So that has many reasons. And after that, the turn of the war has moved, and Russia is now making advances because naturally of Chinese arms and armaments and instruments and all those things. So this is the background. China or Russia, I should say, has reasons to feel that they have been betrayed, and the Western Bloc has reasons to feel that they want to have their own country freed, westernized, and joining the NATO. So, but this is all going. Now, the last nights, as you said, it was, you said yesterday, I also heard it in the early hours of the morning,
right.
This today, the same thing repeated. Donald Trump, we had the making of a, the interpreters discuss this issue, but we have the makings of a cessation, end of war.
Right.
Making means but almost done. But Donald Trump has now suffering from lack of trust elsewhere, because
yes.
he has been bluffed, he has been manipulated by Putin many times. So nothing can be said now unless it is done. I am not much hopeful, but I would be happy if something is done. But despite Zelensky's and the Ukrainians' wishes and desire not to lose any of their territory, I think they would now be ready to lose some in order for having peace in this country. Let us see. I would be happy, we would be happy with the rest of the world if peace returns to that region.
Of course, to gain something is also to lose something.
You have so that time.
So there is an old saying that follows what Volodymyr Zelensky is, of course, now looking towards. That was a very brilliant observation by you, Mr. Ali Ahmed. And there is some adjoining news regarding this Ukraine-Russia issue. I want to ask Ambassador Norman Floyd Barnes. Poland has announced plans to complete new anti-drone fortifications along its eastern border within the next 2 years, amid what officials say are repeated incursions by Russian drones into Polish airspace. My question remains on what Mr. Ali Ahmed has said, not an inch eastern or eastward. So when the bid for joining NATO for Ukraine came about, that is when the Russian forces and the Kremlin had decided that that was it, and that was the line and the limit that was crossed. But I understand that the NATO countries, all of it, are urged to increase their defense spending up to 5% of their GDP up until 2035. So this war that we see between the two sides of Ukraine and Russia, I see that the nations that are not directly involved in the fighting, they are also picking up their military fortifications on various fronts, whether it be anti-drone as well as naval and airspace. So my question to Norman Floyd Barnes, do you see that there should be an immediate end to this war, or if not, the European countries are gearing up for a long Cold War up ahead?
Thank you for the question. My viewpoint is that the European Union need to prepare itself for either outcome. Ukraine right now is under siege by Russia, but Russia is also looking at how it can have a impact on the conditions in the European Union, meaning the European Union has to now depend on defending itself against Russia. So basically, the big picture is that Russia has aspirations on involving themselves and encouraging and annexing other countries into the old Soviet Union type of environment. Basically, Russia wants to have a strong impact and influence on how things are ran in Europe. So the countries like Poland and Norway and other countries has to increase their defenses, because either way, Russia will continue with drones, technology, cybersecurity, other things to basically to break down the European Union. And when they can, there will be, and that's one of the issues we're talking right now, will Russia stop moving forward if they have agreement in Ukraine? My answer in response to that is no. They will continue with their, as long as Putin is president, they will continue with their movement towards annexing Europe. So we have to understand what's going on. Countries have to decide, they have to decide to defend themselves, make preparations. Do not agree to any type of written agreement because it's not worth the paper it's written on. The aspiration is Ukraine now, but what's next? We're the next country. So we don't have, if the countries don't have a defense, a self-defense program, a deterrent, it will move forward. So I see nothing in the future about this thing ending. We may have a ceasefire, a temporary ceasefire in Ukraine, but the impact, the influx, and the continued bombardment of technology and drones to Europe will continue. So Europe has to be able to respond to that because they're the next thing on the table.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Norman Floyd Barnes. As you were initiating the fact that the Russian military and the Kremlin will definitely go towards annexation of not only Ukraine but Europe as a whole, there are some updates in the field of the fighting between the two sides. Russian forces attacked a heating plant in the southern Ukrainian city of Kherson, wounding one person and causing significant damage. On the other side, Ukraine's military said it had struck the Syrian oil refinery in Russia's Samara region in a drone attack. The strike caused a fire and damages were still being assessed according to the Ukrainian army. So I want to come back to the studio before we can go to a break. You see, even while diplomacy is undergoing some kind of transition in the United States of America, in the city of Florida, the fighting between the two enemies are still continuing. Each other is attacking their energy infrastructure. They're attacking their civilian nation. They're attacking the general population. Not only so, they're attacking the narrative of what each country believes in, or of course the sovereignty between the two sides. Even while Ukraine used to be a former territory of Russia or the Soviet Union. My question to you, sir, this fighting is not stopping. When do you think there could be an actual secession? Because each other is only attacking and making sure that the territories will fall to a level that it can't reclaim back.
To me, it now seems that the Ukrainian attack is a counter attack, and it's sort of they have to do something. Actually, the attack is continuing by the Russians. Why? The saying latest, very yesterday or the day before, Putin said a cessation of hostilities, temporary ceasefire, will prolong the war. It has a double-edged sword. It means many things. That if you cease fire now, if it continues for a month or so or whatever, then you start it continues. So the good meaning is that if you finish it now, it ends. But the other bad meaning, and I am afraid that is what they mean, that we will end with conquest of whatever we do, not cessation, no stoppage, go in one go. And the Ukrainian counterattack is to save face, and also because of the anger and everything that they feel. So it is not a very good thing to do. Putin is now doubly strengthened because of Chinese material and other things, and also manpower is in shortage, but compared to Ukraine, their manpower is much larger, and also the North Korean help.
Right.
Manpower and everything.
And not to forget that India is helping the Kremlin in an economic front as well.
Oh yes, in many ways. India is also a party to that, sort of. That is a different issue altogether, but it's not different either, because they are waging war against Ukraine. That is different. But big powers have, India is now a big power, and they have their independence of actions, and others cannot do much against them.
Right.
The Western powers cannot do anything. Had it been a small state, they would have
been pushed around.
Oh yeah, that is why
definitely
it is going on. Very unfortunate for the Ukrainians, because they are dying, they are losing their territory, and in this dead of winter, the Ukrainian winter, the Kiev winter, they are going in total darkness.
And they don't have adequate heating systems for their population.
No heating in large areas of the country. So think of this winter, children and even In the television they were saying, someone says that I don't have charges in my mobile, how can I get it? Because they don't have any power left. So, Russia is hitting those sources of energy and power, and Ukraine is also hitting their oil installations and also power. But Russia is very vast, and Ukraine's well, I don't know how far this 90 billion things that the Europeans were saying, if something has come, they will also be, their quality of fighting is good, the Ukrainians, but their manpower is limited. Right. And they have lost moral strength also by losing almost 20% of their territory, and especially the industrialized zone. Right. So that is very sad also for them.
Brilliant observation coming from Mr. Ali Ahmed. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to go for a short break, but do stay tuned because we have much more interesting updates that I shall be presenting.
সারা দেশে লাখো মানুষের কঠোর কর্মতৎপরতা ও নিষ্ঠায় এসএ পরিবহন পার্সেল অ্যান্ড কুরিয়ার সার্ভিস এখন 16 কোটি মানুষের হাতের নাগালে। দীর্ঘ 30 বছর ধরে বিশ্বস্ততা ও দ্রুততার সাথে সেবা দেওয়ায় গ্রাহক সেবায় এখন শীর্ষে। বাংলাদেশে গ্রাহক সেবার সাফল্যের পর এসএ পরিবহন পার্সেল অ্যান্ড কুরিয়ার সার্ভিস এখন বিশ্ব বাণিজ্য কেন্দ্র সিঙ্গাপুরে। আপনার যে কোনো পণ্য সিঙ্গাপুর থেকে বাংলাদেশে বুকিংয়ের জন্য যোগাযোগ করুন। এসএ পরিবহন প্রাইভেট লিমিটেড, লজিস্টিক্স পার্সেল অ্যান্ড কুরিয়ার সার্ভিস, 22 রবার্টস লেন, সিঙ্গাপুর 218302। ফোন 0065 629 24900। বাংলাদেশ থেকে সিঙ্গাপুরে পণ্য বুকিংয়ের জন্য যোগাযোগ করুন ঢাকা সহ দেশের যে কোনো 80টি শাখা কেন্দ্রে। এসএ পরিবহন পার্সেল অ্যান্ড কুরিয়ার সার্ভিস, আপনার সেবা সব সময়।
Welcome, Grand Palace Hotel, Dhaka. A majestic lobby blending timeless elegance with modern design. Experience 5-star comfort in suites and rooms. Sophisticated fine dining restaurant, crystal clear swimming pool for ultimate relaxation, modern gym and serene spa for well-being.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to International Affairs, broadcasting from Dhaka's Gulshan studio here in Bangladesh as well. We have Dr. Ali Ahmed in the studio, who's an economist, as well as Norman Floyd Barnes joining us from Washington, D.C. I want to begin the next segment with Norman Floyd Barnes. I want to draw attention away from the Ukraine-Russia war, but I want to talk about China and, of course, the South China Sea. This nation has emerged as the sleeping dragon of Asia. And when I want to talk about China, there are so many topics that I can bring out, whether it be the debt diplomacy that they are often known for, if not the Belt and Road Initiative, all of these which actually plant China's image and reputation as a global leader towards all the other nations. However, there are some tensions that one cannot ignore. We know that China is launching drills around Taiwan in a stern warning to external forces. And of course, on Tuesday, it will simulate a live firing round of around Taiwan as a part of China's Justice Mission 2025 military drills. I want to come to Norman Floyd Barnes. We know that Japan had issued a remark regarding China's presence in the region, and ever since then, the tensions have been high in the Chinese Strait and, of course, in the South China Sea. I want to understand how you felt before I can give more on how China plans to head into 2026.
Yes, this is a very unique and strategic situation developing. China has a global plan, and they are very steadfast, very steady, very calm about implementing this plan. The plan is to provide impact, influence, and resources to countries throughout the world. Uh, by doing this, they have a stronger impact on decisions. You know, we mentioned before, China announced itself as the alternative superpower, and that was for a reason. And the reason is basically to let the Western world know, particularly that we are here, we're not going away, and we are in the process of upgrading our impact of the world. We are going to decide not to basically, one of the ministers mentioned before, if there is a conflict or war, we will never fire the first shot. We never fire the first shot. We will provide the second shot, which will basically end the incident. Basically, what they're saying is that you will not be able to return a second shot in terms of military. We will provide the second shot, and that will be it. So they will respond to the point that we have a plan, and we are going to be working both. We have the military power, but we also have the soft power. The soft power is basically we can go into these areas where there's been conflict in, and they have problems. And the world is starting to gear back and focus more on the Western Hemisphere. Let me just mention that the United Nations got notice from the United States that they have going to give them only $2 billion in opposed to $17 billion as was done before in the last couple of years. They're going to reduce the amount of money that goes to humanitarian aid. And they also gave the United Nations a stern warning that you have to adjust, adapt, or die. This is a perfect scenario for China to look at and say, okay, so the United Nations is not providing, the United States is not providing the necessary resources to help with resources and dealing with humanitarian issues, but we are still here. We're the alternative. We will be able to pick up the slack wherever our Western colleagues is not able to do. We will provide that, but we will have the conditions that you'll have to be working with us. Bangladesh is one of the countries that the United States has earmarked funds to go towards, including Haiti, Ukraine, and other countries to provide aid to it. But the United States position going forward in 2026 is that we're going to basically rely on other countries to step in. We're going to back and protect, again, the America First interests. And we're not going to provide as much aid. We want other people to pick up the ante, and we are going to see how that goes. China is going to take that opportunity to come in and say, okay, they're not helping you. They rejected you. They're not supporting you, but we can. But it comes at a cost.
Definitely. Thank you so much for giving your analysis into this topic. I understand that Beijing was angry over the fact that almost $11.1 billion of weapons sale was done from the United States towards Taiwan. And we understand that Beijing considers Taiwan as a part of its territory and pledged to take control of the island by force if necessary. These are the words that have come about in the international media. I want to draw attention of Mr. Ali Ahmed. As you know, that even Norman was saying about the Bangladesh aspect and how we are providing for the world. Just recently, 6 people have been killed in an attack on Sudan on a UN peace facility in which 6 Bangladeshi peacekeepers have died.
And so they were not at war.
They were not at war. They were ambushed. Yes. They were died in an ambush, and that is how a person can be martyred, or the best way. So, given notice to that, we come to the issue of China and Taiwan. And of course, the comments by Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi, and of course this arms sale is an intrusion into the peace and stability of the region in and around China and the smaller nations that follow through in Asia. But I want to understand how you felt about it, given that China has policies that are good, and then there are policies that are also retaliatory. So I want to understand how you felt.
I would like to trace the background a little. During the Second World War, these Allied forces comprising US, UK, China was then the pre-revolutionary China, and USSR. These countries, they were the Allied forces, France. But at the same time, internal revolution or revolt of the Communist Party of China was going on, and Mao Zedong was chasing Chiang Kai-shek's force, Chiang Kai-shek's force.
Yes.
And when the war ended, the whole mainland of China was conquered by Mao Zedong's Communist Party.
Right.
And the others, the remnants of the Chiang Kai-shek's force fled onto the other side and took shelter in Taiwan. After that, 1948, the Communist China was declared. After that, till now, all the countries of the world, including the USA, they agree that there is only one China. So if China tries to occupy that part, they will be conquering their own country. Incidentally and very interestingly, Taiwan also believes in one China. So for both them, it is not just a reunification, not a war. And everyone understands that if there is a war, China would of course be the winner. And the most interesting thing is, America itself is committed to the one China policy. They are not saying anything separately, anything different. They didn't think that a day like this will come. Problem was, if China attacks or China tries to conquer, which they will, they are committed
right.
to do it. So Japan was, I say was because I am going to explain, was an ally of the US. So the war naturally, they will also, Chinese will also attack Japan. Japan the day before yesterday has declared that they have informed the US, they have broken that peace. They are not an ally of the US anymore. So Japan has saved itself from Chinese onslaught, and America is in difficulty. I feel that America perhaps is not going to wage a serious war there, because
Sir,
it is 7,000 miles from there, right. Taiwan's, and for Japan it is only 200 kilometers. It's nothing as from the Chinese mainland. So that is why I have a feeling Japan has saved itself for the time being, and Japan is also, the whole account of these allied forces is going to be different. Japan is now an independent country, free from America. And people say, the thinkers in this line say that now is Korea. Perhaps Korea will also come out of this American bondage, because nobody can tolerate it. So that is why things are also going a turn in so many different ways.
I understand that this is a time that we understand faltering of allegiances between the nations.
Oh yes, changing.
As you were saying, of course.
Japan has been, it's a great thing. Since 1945, after the defeat in the Second World War and Japan's conquest, USA took the whole thing, and they have a huge number of soldiers there, and they made a constitution which is called the Pacifist Constitution.
Right.
That has been broken to some extent, but they are forming. Now Japan would be interested, and Japan declared, while withdrawing from this alliance with USA, Japan's Prime Minister, the lady, she said, well, we will also have our nuclear arms. They will be pursuing nuclear policy. So that is how things are changing, and America is not going to have a good time with Taiwan. They cannot fight there. And Germany, the Chinese are not going to be shooting there. They will just create a blockade around this, and they cannot survive long, because they have about 10-15 days food always, and right. fuel and all that. So they cannot survive for long if China blockades the country.
Of course, China is a country known to be very resourceful when it comes to this fuel and if not crude oil.
Everything.
And if you look at the US policy in the region, they picked out a foe between the two sides, North Korea, South Korea. They picked out South Korea. And of course, they do not meet eye to eye with the government, the DPRK of North Korea led by Kim Jong-un. and they are seen to be friends with China once again. So there are issues that one can definitely attain and say the United States has lucratively picked out its allies. However, the allies must understand that they are in a default position given the rise of China. I want to have another question to you, sir. China and its initiative of the BRI, the Belt and Road Initiative, it connects the old Silk Road into a modern day infrastructure in which trade is realized. Economic barriers are thrown away, and of course it will not only benefit the nation of China but those nations that are participating.
It benefits the whole world.
It benefits the whole world to a certain degree.
Yes.
I want to understand how you see this as well, because Bangladesh also a part of this Belt and Road.
Bangladesh has, it has been found out, Bangladesh can, because China is in very good relation with Myanmar, and Bangladesh has a connection through Myanmar. Myanmar and Bangladesh has a common border. So, a rail line has been planned. I do not know, India is seriously opposed to it. In that case, there would be direct rail connection between Bangladesh and China through Myanmar. So, Bangladesh would get rid of this isolation, and I think it may come into reality someday. China is of course a great power, true, but China is not colonialist. China in its entire term has never colonized any country in the world in its entire history. They came in the Middle Ages to the western side of India and did something there, sent troops in to look at the people, but they did not occupy any country. So, China is not on record during these thousands of years of history to have occupied any country. In fact, they built this defensive wall, the Great Wall, to save themselves from the Mongol attacks. So, I think China is a great power, but it is not a colonizing power.
Of course, I want to add on to what you have just said, saying if you look back at history in 1944, the leader of the Chinese Communist Party, Mao Zedong, had come to a very famous slogan called "Serve the People," and these were the words that he had used. And doing so, that nation had gone from a farming nation into a more technology advanced nation, or at least a nation that can take on the Western powers, in my opinion. Ladies and gentlemen, this was a lovely discussion between both my panelists regarding China and all of its updates. Do stay with us as we are going to head for a short commercial break.
Perfect venue for corporate events, weddings and parties. Seamless and secured. Elegant and eye-catching design. Indulge, relax, discover the first 5-star chain hotels in Bangladesh. Grand Palace Hotel Dhaka, 22 Kakrail, Dhaka, Bangladesh.
Welcome to Grand Club at Mirpur 10 Dhaka. Elegant spa and wellness facility for ladies and gents. Play pool and snooker in international standard billiard zone. World-class gym facility with exclusive equipment for man and woman. A restaurant of delicious local and international cuisine. Fully air-conditioned building with spacious banquet, car lift, sky view rooftop restaurant, all in one. Grand Club Limited, Mirpur 10, Dhaka.
কি এমন জিনিস
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to International Affairs. I believe this is the last segment of the program. We were in discussion regarding the Chinese influence across the South China Sea. And not only so, before that we were talking about the Ukraine-Russia war and what are the position and views of United States legislation and the government. However, there is an aspect that we have left on, which I will now bring to the table. The history and the timeline of two rivals, one being the United States of America, and of course the next is Venezuela, and those in Latin America that support Venezuela. Let me give some of the background before I can move on towards the question. Earlier on this year, in March 2025, the U.S. administration signed an order imposing 25% tariff on countries importing Venezuelan crude, increasing economic pressure on Venezuela's vital oil sector. And of course, the Alien Enemies Act targeted alleged Tren de Aragua cartel members for deportation from the U.S., a policy that highlighted bilateral tensions. So this was March of 2025. We know that in the recent times, the U.S. Gerald R. Ford, the largest aircraft carrier, has been positioned in the Caribbean Sea. I really do not understand who the enemy is, whether it be the government of Venezuela or the leader of the government, Nicolas Maduro, if not illegal drug traffickers who have been blown away to smithereens. So I want to ask Mr. Ali Ahmed, you see, this is not just a fight for to stop illegal drug trafficking. This is a fight that has various other aspects as well. I want your take as well.
Thank you for asking this question. In 1823, while the British sun was blazing in the sky, I mean the British colonial power, but on this side the United States also rose in power, and the president of the time of the United States declared that no Western power will have anything to do with any colonization or anything on the Western hemisphere. It will be only America's, and it has been going on till then. Britain was a friendly country by that time, and they were not disturbing America, and nobody else dared. So this is called the Truman Doctrine. President Truman said nobody will come to the Western hemisphere, and this has been going on so far. But this time it has been broken by Soviet Union, by Russia very clearly, because they have sent one of their warships and everything on this side, and China is buying oil from this Venezuela. Incidentally, Venezuela sits over the largest deposit of mineral oil in the world. It is the largest depository. So America recently, very interestingly, sent a feeler to Venezuela that we want to have peaceful relations, and the content was that you will stop selling it to others, and you will give the US companies the lease of those things and everything, and we will have very good friendly relations. That is the death of the graveyard. They didn't want it, and China said, why? How can this Truman Doctrine be? This is unfair. If we cannot come to the Western hemisphere, then you cannot come to the Eastern hemisphere either, because China is now strong. And this has been going on, as you see, as I have told, Japan has delinked itself from the US, and others will be doing soon. And America, US, cannot hold it any longer. China is buying its oil, and if they keep on hitting Chinese carriers for this, carriers means these oil carriers, tankers, then China might also do the same. And America has not yet touched anything of Chinese trade. Right. So I have a feeling this has broken. This Truman Doctrine is as good as dead. And it is, US is a powerful country still its army is the largest, armed forces is the largest, right, and is still the richest country in the world. But that does not mean that they will occupy the whole world. They are challenged now, and China is joined in this way by these BRICS countries, other BRICS countries. They don't care about this. Even India, right, Brazil, and all those countries. So it is a very transitional time in the world, and transitional times are very dangerous.
Of course.
Anything can happen.
Of course. Thanks for the lovely observation regarding this issue of US and Venezuela. I understand that previously we could say there was a one world order, but now it's a multipolar world.
Yeah, multipolar.
And definitely there are emerging nations who will take on to the likes of the United States of America. I want to come to Norman Floyd Barnes, joining us from Washington, D.C. We were talking about Venezuela and United States relationship from whatever that's happened earlier on the year. And as of recent, we know that President Trump ordered a total naval blockade on sanctioned Venezuelan oil tankers in the region. And of course, Venezuela legislature passed a law criminalizing piracy and blockades in response to U.S. tanker interceptions. I want to understand how you felt, given that, of course, United States of America is in continuous tensions with Venezuela at this very moment as well. Mr. Norman Floyd Barnes, I want your take on the matter.
Yes, thank you again for the question. The issue, well, the situation is that the United States has a large military contingent, naval fleet in the Caribbean with the purpose of controlling the environment. This is part of the United States' new belief that we should focus more on the Western Hemisphere. The Pentagon's in the process of reorganizing the structure of how we position our military and combat forces around the world, with a heavy concentration on the Americas. There are going to be what we call a reset in terms of how we deal with the world, and the Trump administration strategy is now focusing on protecting the homeland, protecting the Americas, focusing on areas like the Caribbean, South America, and South Asia versus Europe. Yeah, as you notice, we are now shifting away, leaving that responsibility up to the EU to deal with Ukraine and issues to deal with Europe and Africa. So what you are seeing is a major shift in the philosophy and structure of our military. So our current military fleet in the Caribbean is there for a purpose, to let them know that the United States is now focusing on activities in the Western Hemisphere. And anything that conflicts with our overall mission of America first and involvement of things that will economically help the United States, we are not going to get that involved in. So areas like Venezuela, because of the oil reserves and the whole area is more of a what they call reasonable. It's close to home. We can get there, we can get out, we can mass a lot of resources around, and we can control it instead of trying to control Europe. Well, in the situation, Southeast Asia. So we have to basically understand how we're going to move forward as a nation in terms of dealing with issues, dealing with the world.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Norman Floyd Barnes, for your stout observations regarding this issue. I must also thank Mr. Ali Ahmed, who has joined us in the studio today. Ladies and gentlemen, as I draw closer, that was the top topics that I have picked out for discussion today. However, December 29th, 1845, there was a joint resolution from the U.S. Congress that was passed and signed, and it was, of course, understandable